Welcome to our Middle East Briefing show. Today, we have a mix of sports, international intrigue, and significant geopolitical developments to discuss. First up, the Hong Kong football team is facing a tough battle ahead of their World Cup qualifier against Turkmenistan. After a grueling 19-hour journey, they're dealing with subpar training facilities and scorching temperatures. Interim head coach Wolfgang Lewisser is pulling out all the stops, using sports psychology to keep the team's spirits high as they aim for their first away win in 6 years. They need this victory to avoid finishing last in their group. Next, a dramatic and worrying situation in Malawi where a military plane carrying Vice President Salos Chilima and former First Lady Shanil Zimbri has gone missing. The plane disappeared from radar in mountainous forests near Mzuzu after being advised not to land due to bad weather. President Lazarus Chakwera is leading an all-out search effort, with international support from the US, UK, Norway, and Israel. Finally, a major development in the ongoing Gaza conflict. The UN Security Council has passed a US-backed ceasefire resolution for the Gaza Strip. This resolution calls for an immediate halt to hostilities and the provision of humanitarian aid. While the US ambassador to the UN claims Israel has agreed to the deal, Israel has not yet confirmed this publicly. This vote could potentially bolster Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken's efforts to secure a lasting peace. Please stay tuned for more details on these stories. South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong's football team, led by interim coach Wolfgang Lewisser, is facing significant challenges ahead of their World Cup qualifier against Turkmenistan. The team has dealt with subpar training facilities and extreme heat, with temperatures soaring above 40 degrees Celsius. After a grueling 19-hour journey to Ashgabat, the squad had to undergo COVID tests and wait for visa clearances, further delaying their preparations. Despite these hurdles, Lewisser has been using his sports psychology expertise to maintain team morale, incorporating fun elements into recovery sessions. The team, which has not won an away World Cup match since 2015, will play on an outdated artificial pitch, adding to their difficulties. Lewisser remains optimistic, encouraging his players to bring high energy and stick to their game plan to secure a victory. In another report from the South China Morning Post, soldiers in Malawi are conducting a search operation in mountainous forests near Mzuzu for a missing military plane carrying Vice President Salos Chilima and former First Lady Shanil Zimbri. The plane, which departed from Lilongwe, lost contact with air traffic control after being advised to turn back due to bad weather. President Lazarus Chakwera assured the nation that all resources are being deployed to find the plane, and search efforts are focused on a specific area within a pine plantation. International assistance from the US, UK, Norway, and Israel has been offered, providing specialized technologies to aid the search. The vice president and other passengers were en route to a funeral when the incident occurred, and Chakwera has called for prayers for their safety. The New York Times reports that the United Nations Security Council has adopted a US-backed ceasefire resolution for the Gaza Strip, with Russia abstaining from the vote. This move reflects the international community's growing frustration with the ongoing conflict and a collective desire to end the violence. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield emphasized that Israel has agreed to the deal, urging Hamas to follow suit. Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken has returned to the Middle East to push for the ceasefire, but challenges remain as Israel's UN representative, Roit Shapur Ben Naftali, reiterated that Israel's military objectives have not changed. She stated that Israel will continue its operations until all hostages are freed and Hamas's military capabilities are dismantled, indicating that a final agreement is still uncertain. Washington Post. The recent Israeli raid in Gaza's Nuseirat refugee camp, aimed at rescuing hostages, has ignited intense scrutiny over Israel's efforts to protect civilians amid its conflict with Hamas. The operation, which freed 4 Israeli hostages, resulted in the deaths of at least 274 Palestinians, many of whom were women and children, according to Gaza's health ministry. Eyewitnesses described the sheer scale of the assault as overwhelming, with Gaza's already fragile hospital system struggling to cope with the influx of casualties. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, justified the use of heavy firepower, citing the need to counter Hamas militants who were using civilian areas to shield their operations. However, international law experts argue that Israel's actions may have violated the principle of proportionality, which mandates minimizing civilian harm. The extent of the destruction and the high civilian toll have raised significant legal and ethical questions about the conduct of both Israel and Hamas in this protracted conflict. Associated Press. The Netherlands' hopes for a strong showing in Euro 2024 have been dealt a significant blow with the news that star midfielder Frenkie de Jong will miss the tournament due to an ankle injury. The Dutch Soccer Association confirmed that the Barcelona player would not be fit enough to compete after Ronald Koeman's team secured a 4-0 victory over Iceland in their final warm-up match. De Jong's absence leaves a void in the Dutch midfield, and Koeman is now faced with the decision of whether to call up a replacement. Adding to the team's woes, midfielder Teun Koopmeiners also suffered an injury during the warm-up, casting further doubt on his availability for the tournament. The Netherlands, who last won the European Championship in 1988, will face a challenging group stage, starting with a match against Poland, followed by games against World Cup runner-up France and Austria. New York Times. In a dramatic rescue operation in Gaza's Nuseirat refugee camp, Israeli special forces freed 4 hostages held by Hamas, with the military revealing that 3 of them were confined in the home of a Hamas member. The raid, which involved intense coordination between Israel's military, intelligence, and air force, resulted in the deaths of over 274 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. The Israeli military, however, reported a lower death toll of fewer than 100. The operation highlighted the contentious issue of Hamas using civilian homes to shield its activities, a tactic that Israel has long criticized. The death of Abdullah al-Jamal, a Hamas-affiliated journalist, was confirmed by Gaza's government media office, underscoring the complex and often murky nature of the conflict. The high civilian casualties have renewed debate over the ethical and legal implications of Israel's military tactics, particularly in densely populated areas like Gaza. Associated Press. In a dramatic warm-up match ahead of the European Championship, Poland's star strikers Robert Lewandowski and Karol Swiderski sustained injuries, casting doubt on their participation in the tournament. Lewandowski, who assisted Swiderski's opening goal in the 12th minute, was forced to leave the pitch at the 32nd minute due to an injury. Swiderski had already been substituted earlier due to an ankle injury. Despite these setbacks, Poland managed to secure a 2-1 victory against Turkey, with Nikola Zalewski scoring a stunning maiden international goal in the 90th minute. Turkey, who also have their eyes on the Euros, found an equalizer through Barış Alper Yilmaz, but ultimately fell short. The Dutch, on the other hand, showcased their attacking prowess with consecutive 4-0 wins, including a dominant performance against Iceland with goals from Virgil van Dijk, Wout Weghorst, Xavi Simons, and Daniel Malin. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic narrowly defeated North Macedonia 2-1, needing 2 second-half penalties to secure the win. Washington Post. The United Nations Security Council has unanimously adopted a U.S.-sponsored resolution supporting a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, marking a significant diplomatic win for the Biden administration. The resolution, which passed with a 14-0 vote and Russia abstaining, backs a 3-phase plan aimed at halting violence and establishing peace in the region. Initially, it calls for a 6-week complete ceasefire, during which Israeli forces would withdraw from populated areas, Hamas would release hostages, and humanitarian aid would flow into Gaza. The plan's second phase involves negotiating a permanent cessation of violence and the complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. The third phase outlines steps toward reconstruction and a 2-state solution. While Hamas has expressed readiness to engage in indirect negotiations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has voiced objections to certain aspects of the plan, particularly the staging of withdrawals and a future without Israeli security control over Gaza. The resolution includes language urging both parties to implement the ceasefire terms without delay or condition. The Independent. Poland faced a significant setback just days before their Euro 2024 campaign, as captain Robert Lewandowski was forced off the field with a thigh injury during their final warm-up friendly against Turkey. The Barcelona striker's departure in the 32nd minute added to Poland's woes, as fellow forward Karol Swiderski had already been substituted after injuring his ankle while celebrating his goal in the 12th minute. Despite these challenges, Poland managed to edge out a 2-1 victory, thanks to an injury-time winner from Nikola Zalewski. Turkey equalized through Barış Alper Yilmaz, but the Poles found a late winner to secure the win. Meanwhile, the Netherlands showcased their form with a 4-0 thrashing of Iceland, featuring goals from Xavi Simons, Virgil van Dijk, Daniel Malin, and Wout Weghorst. The Czech Republic also secured a narrow 2-1 victory over North Macedonia, with Antonin Barak scoring an injury-time penalty after Patrick Schick's opener and Isnik Alamai's equalizer for North Macedonia. Associated Press. The U.S. military announced plans to stockpile aid on a secure beach in Gaza as the UN World Food Program, WFP, temporarily pauses food distribution from an American-built pier due to security concerns following one of the deadliest days in the Israel-Hamas war. The UN will conduct a security review to ensure the safety of its staff, expected to conclude within a few days. The pause comes after an Israeli military operation that rescued 4 hostages taken by Hamas, resulting in the deaths of 274 Palestinians and 1 Israeli commando. UN humanitarian officials emphasized the need to pause and review the security situation, especially after WFP warehouses were hit by rockets and a staffer was injured. Major General Pat Ryder, Pentagon press secretary, stated that aid delivery from Cyprus to the pier was paused due to high seas but would resume soon, with aid being stored on the beach until distribution restarts. The pier, constructed by the U.S. military to provide an alternative aid route amid fighting and Israeli restrictions, has faced operational challenges due to rough seas and increased fighting. Despite social media claims, Ryder denied any military use of the pier in the recent operation. The U.S. also conducted an airdrop of over 10 metric tons of ready-to-eat meals. U.S. and international officials stress that only a steady flow of truck shipments through land borders can meet Gaza's urgent need for food and emergency aid, with over 1 million people facing famine and the entire population struggling for sustenance. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.